Yesterday, we brought you, as Rick would say, a full-throated coverage of the 70-year anniversary celebrations of the founding of the People's Republic of China. The celebration was notable in particular for the massive display, you're looking at it there, of Chinese military force and military hardware. In particular, the People's Liberation Army unveiled a whole host of new jets and other manned and unmanned aerial vehicles, or drones as we often call them, as well as new state-of-the-art intercontinental ballistic missiles, giving China the potential now to strike any target throughout the globe. Well, the display raises a host of questions about Chinese military capabilities now. Was it all show, as some experts argue, or does China really now pose a real and present threat to U.S. military hegemony, if not globally, or at least in the Pacific? And how will the United States respond? The buzz has some military experts in Washington sounding the alarm as the economic trade war between China and the United States continues to rage on. Well, I'm not exactly, a weapons or missile expert. I know a little something about the U.S. military infrastructure in some other countries, but I'll tell you who is. Former Naval Intelligence Officer John Jordan. He's a military expert. He joins us now to discuss some of the details of this new Chinese weaponry and what it means for the future of U.S.-Chinese global military competition. John, I know this is your turf. It's great to have you on, man. We go back and we've been talking about this. We spoke earlier before the show. What are, in your estimation, what are some of the weapons as you looked at, this parade and the arsenal? What are some of the weapons that really stood out to you?
Well, John, as you pointed out, the viability of a lot of these systems is a matter of controversy inside the world military establishment, especially here in the United States. How viable are they? How well tested have they been? And how operational are they? What the Chinese did in this parade is they wanted to serve notice to the world that they were upgraded, that they were playing for real in the world of deliverable nuclear weapons. And they served up 3 systems which should give the world pause. The DF-41 intercontinental ballistic missile with 10 multiple independently targetable vehicles, which is on par with the up-to-date systems of the United States and Russia. We also got a glimpse of the DF-17, a medium-range ballistic missile, theoretically capable of launching a hypersonic glide vehicle as a warhead. This would be a threat to naval forces in and around the Pacific, as well as, conventionally, as well as with a nuclear weapon. And most interestingly, just as an observer, was the H-6N bomber, the newer version of it, where it ostensibly is going to be able to launch an intercontinental ballistic missile from an airplane. This is a technology that has not been pursued by the United States or Russia, but in theory at least, it would provide a very survivable, highly mobile launch platform for the Chinese to be able to deliver nuclear weapons. So it kind of how we use submarines, kind of a second strike capability can kind of come from anywhere if it was used in a first strike role. So some very interesting developments, and it remains to be seen, whether or not these are actual operational weapons or these are merely prototypes and kind of props for political theater.
Well, that's a good point, and we talked about this too. The fact that China was putting all these weapons on display, the United States, we're not going to put that out. We're not going to have a necessarily military parade where we're showing our strategic weapon systems, particularly nuclear arsenal and our arsenal. So I guess this kind of begs the question: is it cause for concern for the United States that China is showing this, or is it just really, just one big show?
Well, prudence requires that the United States take this seriously. What China is doing here is a parade. It's kind of similar to what the Soviets used to do and the North Koreans do, is they want to show and the Iranians, they want to show their hardware, and they want to show it, and they want the world's media to see it. It gives them the perception of strength, and it gives them leverage in intercourse and negotiations with other countries, just the fact that they may or may not have these capabilities. Some countries have advertised these things, and they haven't been borne out, and the Chinese have oftentimes actually showed some of these newer systems, and they've been in varying states of readiness. The United States, however, historically has taken a different tack. If all of us think back to the F-117 and the stealth bombers when they came out, there wasn't a word, a whisper of these things really outside of the aerospace trade journals, and even then it was only rumor, until bombs started falling out of the sky in Panama and then later in Kuwait with regard to the first Gulf War. So the American tradition has always been to hide our latest and greatest weapon systems in bases out in the West, whether it's Utah or famously Area 51 in Nevada, and then only the public only sees them when the bombs begin to fall. So it's two very different approaches. It's hard to say which one is better, but the Chinese model here, it's certainly going to give them some degree of political leverage and prestige in and around the world as the world sees these systems, regardless of which stage of development they're in.
John, we got about 20 seconds, but what are some of the questions that the U.S. really should be asking about China's military? Maybe one or two very important questions you think the Pentagon should be asking about this.
We want to understand their testing regimen. Which systems are being tested, where, and when. Secondly, American policymakers need to be looking at our defense priorities and our budgets and understand which technologies we may have maybe in the type pipeline which may negate some of these, whether it's anti-ballistic missile submarine missiles, land-based systems in Alaska, or the Aegis systems on ships, or the Aegis ashore. How do we counter them? But we really want to understand where the Chinese are in their development and deployment program.
All right, very good. We'll leave it there. John Jordan, always good to see you, my friend. Thanks for coming on.
So you haven't heard that we're the ones covering the stories that you won't see covered anywhere else? In Venezuela, Kazakhstan. Let's go to Hong Kong. And the media reaction to that has been crickets. How about the way we cover those stories? What the hell does that mean? Huawei, Huawei, Huawei. That's the key word in this case, uprising. Keep? Can you believe that? Watching. This is the right thing for members of the media to do, to actually pick sides. Look, if you like what you see, subscribe.